Hello there my lovely jewelry makers, I'm Christina of CSLdesigns, and in today's tutorial I'm going to show you how to make this sparkly macrame bracelet that creates a really beautiful effect and is super elegant. Now you can of course make it look how you want to depending on the materials and the colours that you're using. And if you like this, there will also be a matching ring. Once that's available, there'll be a link in the description box down below. So if you like this, feel free to let me know in the comments, along with liking and sharing, and of course subscribe to my channel if you want to. You can also become a member here on my channel or on my Patreon. Again, check that out down below. Otherwise, if you want to learn how to make this really elegant bracelet, then keep watching. So these are the materials that we're going to need. The cord that I'm using here is a c-lon cord in this lovely teal colour. And then as for the sparkle we're going to add, we'll need these Rose Montees here that are 6mm, and they have these two channels on the back that are crossing, which is where the cord is going to go through. Now all you want to make sure of is that whatever cord you're using, it can go through the channels of these beads. And to finish off the ends of our bracelet, I'm going to use these ribbon ends here that have little loops in them where we can attach our findings. So I have a lock or claw clasp, an extender chain, and a couple of jump rings to put it all together. Now along with the ribbon ends, I'm also going to be using this glue to help make it more secure. As for the tools, I'm going to be working on this project macrame board here, where we can then also use our T-pins to help secure our work down as we're making it. I'm going to use a couple of pliers, so chain nose and tweezing nose pliers for the ribbon ends and the jump rings. Of course we'll need scissors to cut our cord with. And I'm also going to be using a lighter to help singe the ends of our cord. That will make it easier to get through the beads. But you can only do this if you're using a synthetic cord like me. Now you can check out the full tool and material list in the description box down below the video, along with useful links. Otherwise, let's get it all ready and let's get started. Now the lengths of cord that we're going to need is 6 lengths of about 1 meter and 40 centimeters each. Of course that will depend on the size that you're making. But what I've then done is made sure all the ends are even, and I've gone in about 10 to 15 centimeters and put a knot there, and this will be a starting point and working in with the long ends that we have left here. And the first thing we're going to do is attach this to our macrame board. So that's where I'm going to use my T-pins. I'm just going to start out, like I said, from that knot. So I'm just putting some pins through the knot to secure it in place. So something about like that. And then we have our long ends of cord here coming down towards us that we can then start making our bracelet with. And to get started, I'm just going to separate out the cords a bit. So what I want to do is find the outer cord on either side and just put them out of the way for now. And then we have these 4 coming straight down that we're going to start out with. So what I like to do is just grab 2 first of all, and they're just 2 right next to each other, and these are first of all going to be our holding cords. The other 2 here that are coming straight down, in this case underneath, are going to be our working cords to begin with. So like I said, these 2 we ignore out of the way for now. Now the 2 that I separate out to be the holding cords, I'm going to take the right one and then cross that over to the left, and I'm going to then take the left one and cross that over to the right. So they are crossing each other, and we have this point in the middle where they are laying next to each other, so they're doubled up as well. Now we have the other 2 lengths coming down underneath, and we're just going to take one at a time, grab whichever one is closest first. And in this case, it doesn't matter what side you start with, but I'm just holding onto the cords with my right hand, which means I'm then going to grab the left working cord underneath there and use that first. And we have this open space where we can then make a double half hitch. So the working cord is coming underneath. I'm going to bring it around and over the top of the 2 holding cords down through the loop of them and pull it all the way through. And then you can see here it loops around those 2 holding cords. And then we just want to tighten this down and create our first knot. Now what we want to do is hold the holding cords taut as we're tightening the knot, and it's going to be a little bit fiddly to begin with here, but once we have the first couple of knots in place it'll be much easier. So making sure that I'm tightening the knot just close down to where that overhand knot is, holding everything together. You can see the first one is always a bit loose here, so I'm going to repeat the same thing. The 2 holding cords are in my right hand. I take the working cord, bring it over the top and down through to make a double half hitch, and as I then tighten this second one, which is the other half of the full double half hitch, that then tightens up the whole knot there. And then we just have that down towards that side. Now I'm going to swap hands, so that's the left one we did. I'm going to grab hold of the two holding cords with my left hand. Then I have the right working cord coming underneath. I'm going to do the same thing but on the other side here. So just bring it over the top of the holding cords and down through, so it loops around again like that. We can tighten this down a bit, just in the same place next to where the first one is sitting, and then keep hold of the holding cords, bring the working cord around in the same manner, pull it all the way through, and then this is the second half of our double half hitch. Tighten that down. So this is now the position we're in. We have a knot on either side, but we have these loose cords in between them. So what we need to do now is tighten those up. So it doesn't matter what side you do first. I'm going to just take the right one and I'm going to put my finger on that knot. So this is the holding cord coming through the knot, and as I'm, you could say, holding on to the knot with my finger, just to make sure we don't undo anything or it comes out of place, I'm going to start to pull this holding cord through that knot, which tightens up the loose loop down here until we can't really pull any further. I'm going to swap over and do the same thing with the other cord, so the one that's still loose and quite big. So you just want to make sure you do identify the right cord. Now this one that I got here is actually not the right one. That's the one we left out. So it's the other one that's coming through the knot. Just make sure you're grabbing the right cord, so you're actually pulling it through the knot. And then once we're down and we don't really have much length left, we just want to make sure we pull from both sides at the same time to basically snap them into place, so the knots end up sitting right next to each other, and the holding cords are basically coming straight through the knots next to each other like that. And then this is the position we're in. This is the starting point of what's going to end up being our first circle. So we can just organize our cords again. These are the two working cords that we made the knots with. They're coming straight down. The two coming out from either side of the knots there, they were the holding cords. And then we also have those two cords that we separated out and we haven't used yet. So now we need to start making the sides. And to do that, this is where we need to bring in the cords that we separated out. So I'm just going to do one side at a time, and we can just put all the other cords out of the way so we don't get too tangled up. So the two working cords coming straight down, just put them out of the way. I'm going to start on the left, so I'm just putting everything else to the right. So I'm taking the holding cord on the right side. So I'm taking the holding cord on the left side here, and then this cord that we haven't used yet, I'm going to bring that down underneath that holding cord, going straight out to the side. And then what we need to do is start extending this row of knots and start making it this side of the circle that's going to end up sitting around the bead. And we're going to do this again using double half hitches. So the working cord is coming underneath. I'm going to bring that around, over the top and around the holding cord, back underneath, so it loops around and looks like that, kind of a reverse 6. And then we tighten that up to sit right next to the other knots. Do it again, which is the second half of the knot. Again, it looks like this, and then if we pull this tight, you can then see we've extended the row of knots by one more. Now to continue making more knots, we need to bring this working cord underneath the holding cord to come out in the opposite direction. So we basically swap hands, and they swap jobs, you could call them, and our hands kind of swap jobs, you could say. And otherwise we're doing the same thing. So I'm bringing the working cord underneath the holding cord, bringing it around, pulling it all the way through, and then on this side you could see as it loops around we kind of get what looks like a regular 6. And then as you tighten this, you just also want to make sure to start holding the holding cord but gradually more towards the middle. Tighten that nice and tight next to the previous knot. Repeat for the second half of our knot. And again, tighten that nicely. And the reason that we are holding our holding cords in a certain place as we tighten the knot that's what determines basically how this row is going to end up. We're going to end up with more of a curve to obviously become this side of the circle, but we need to just make some more knots. So bring it back underneath the holding cord out in the opposite direction. Again, swap hands, and then just make another double half hitch. Pull that nice and tight, and once more to get the full. And you can see we are really extending that row. Now we need to do it one more time. Bring it underneath again. Swap hands, make your double half hitch. This is going to be the last one on this side here. And as now I'm going to pull this nice and tight, I'm making sure that this holding cord is actually coming almost all the way over to the other side even. Because you can see we've actually managed to then add a bit of a curve to this row of knots naturally by doing that. And which is then obviously going to end up sitting nicely around that bead. And that was the final knot. So I made the second half as well and pull that nice and tight. So I'm going to leave that for now. I'm going to basically go to the other side and do exactly the same thing except in a mirrored image. So the two working cords coming right through the middle there, straight down from the very first knots that were made, put them towards the left in this case because I'm going to be working on the right side. And we are going to be using the holding cord that comes out from those first knots and the cord that we have left to use that we separated out in the very beginning. So that very outer one we haven't used yet, bring it underneath the holding cord, and we just need to extend this row of knots on this side, gradually adding a curve just like we did on that side. So make your double half hitch. Start with the first half here, make sure to tighten that all the way up next to the other knots there, and the other half seals that in place, and then bring the working cord underneath the holding cord and all the way through so we can continue extending this row and making more knots continuously next to each other, and then tighten that first half nice and tight up underneath, gradually moving the holding cord here further in towards the center to make sure we get that curve in place. Bring it underneath to make our next knot. Again, we're swapping hands every time, just kind of changing direction in how we're making the knot, and swap underneath again to make the final knot here on this side. Do the first half of your double half hitch, sure it's nice and tight, and then do the second half to make the full knot. And for the final knot here, as we tighten that, we are holding the holding cord over actually towards the other side more, so we really emphasize the curve there. And that is the other side, and you can already see here we've actually created almost a full circle by just doing our rows of knots in that way. Now what we have are these two cords in the middle. Now they obviously need to be put through our bead because that's going to end up sitting right there in between the two sides that we just made. What I like to do first is just singe the ends here because that'll make it much easier to put through the bead. And also now that I know which cords I'm going to be using for that, because there's no need to do that for all of them. So this is going to obviously be hot because it's a naked flame, so be careful. But I'm going to basically just, you could say, burn or melt the end until it's a bit melted there. And then you just kind of roll it between your fingers and create a little needle almost. And I want to do that with both of them just because it makes it much easier to get through the bead, like I said. So we have something like that. Both of them have little needles, you could call it, on there. So I'm going to grab a bead, and before we do any more knots or anything else, we need to add this. So just grab one of the cords, put that through in one direction here. You can see it's going straight through from one side to the other. And I'm then going to grab the other length, and then we need to put this through just in the other direction, but I'm just bringing it down so I can see how the bead is going to sit, because we want to make sure we put it through correctly. So I need to bring it through the hole on that side there. So it can be a little bit tricky to get through, but that's why I said as well I singe the ends. That makes it easier, because obviously there is only so much space inside and they do need to cross each other, the cords. So one cord is kind of a little bit in the way of the other one, but just take your time, and like I said, singeing the ends here really does help make a difference with that. Just kind of try and feed it through, try and find that space inside. Sometimes I also find it can help using pliers just to help guide the cord, because you can often get a better grip than you can just using your fingers. And all you need is just enough to poke through on the other side to grab onto that, and then start to pull it through. And there you go. We can now pull it all the way through, and then push it all the way down to sit in between the two sides of the rows of knots that we made. And then if we just bring these closer, you can see they're going to just cup that bead just perfectly. Now of course what we need to do is fasten all this in place and also finish off the circle here, so that bottom part of it. And basically to do that we're going to repeat exactly the same thing that we did right when we started the circle. So that means we need to do that doubling up of the cord. So I'm going to take the two holding cords, the one from either side that are coming straight through the knot, so coming out at the end of the rows. I'm going to take the right one, bring it over to the left, and the left one is going to go over everything towards the right. So we have our two cords here doubling over and crossing each other. Now what we're then going to do is, doesn't matter what side we start with, I'm going to grab on to the cords here. I'm just going to do that with my right hand first, and then I'm going to use the left cord because that's where we have the space to work with. Bring that around the holding cords, and then now as I'm pulling this tight, I'm going to make sure I hold the holding cords taut, and this is going to then continue to extend the row on this side, but also just make sure that we're tightening this right up against the bead, and obviously that we like and happy with how everything is going to be sitting. So that's the first half, and then do the other half of the knot, and then that's going to stay in place. Now swap hands, hold onto the holding cords with your left one, and then use the right working cord that's coming through the bead. Make your double half hitch, hold the holding cords taut as you tighten that, and do the other half, and just retighten the first one if you need to, so it doesn't really fasten or stay in place until you make the second half of the knot, and then pull that down. And now you can see again we have these loose loops. So what we're going to do is go back to the holding cords that are coming kind of in the opposite direction, so going outwards, upwards, or out to the side away from the piece. Now again I'm going to put my finger on the knot and then pull just one at a time, pull the holding cord through. I can try and show you as well without holding the knot. I do prefer to hold it though, as you help hold everything in place. So it looks a little something like this. You might find that the cord is wanting to twist up here, but just keep kind of undoing it if you need to, just to make sure we can pull it all the way through the knot. So make sure you identify the right cord, because we don't accidentally grab the one that we made a knot with. We want to make sure we grab the holding cord that's coming through the knot, and then pull that through gently. Try to avoid creating any twists that might turn into some knots, but then pull it all the way through and pull on both sides at the same time, and that really tightens it up all the way around the bead and cups it in place just perfectly. As you can see, we've then also completed our very first circle, and this is basically what we need to keep doing now. So every single circle we make is going to be the exact same thing. So that means we need to start out the circle by doing that doubling over of the cord first that I showed you, which is basically also what we just did to finish the circle. So I'm just going to show you again just to make sure. Now I'm not going to be reusing that little part that I just made as the beginning of the next circle. I'm going to make a completely new circle. So that means for now the top cord on either side is going to just go out of the way, and we're going to use the holding cord on either side. and those we just want to cross over again just like we did before. So the right one goes over to the left and the left one goes over to the right, and they're going over the top of the working cords here, coming straight down. They are crossing each other, so we have them doubled up. And to make our first knots, I'm holding on with my right hand, using the left working cord first, making our double half hitch, holding the cords taut as I'm tightening it, and this row of knots is now going to sit straight below the previous one we just did before to close up that previous circle. So they are literally sitting next to each other or on top of each other, however you want to look at it. Tighten the second half to make the full first knot. Swap hands to hold on to the holding cords with your left hand. Make your double half hitch with the right working cord. Hold taut while you're tightening the knot. And then make the other half to finish off that knot. And again, this is where we are left with our loose loops in between the knots. So we just need to pull on our holding cords one at a time through the knots there. So that's the right, and then identify the right cord on the left. It's going to be this one here, and then tighten that loop as well until we can pull on both sides at the same time and just snap them into place. And you can see we now have two rows sitting right on top of each other, and this is the beginning of the next circle. So let's crack on and just get that one made as well. Go through it again. So we have our holding cords coming out towards either side of the row of knots that we just made. Just going to work with one side at a time. Stand on the left, so I'm going to put everything towards the right and just work with the holding cord, and then what's going to be the working cord, but the cord coming from the circle above it that we haven't used yet for this new circle. Bring that underneath. That's going to be the working cord. And then we just want to extend this row that we made and make the one side of the circle. So we're going to do that by making a double half hitch just to extend the row. And tighten that in place. And then we want to keep bringing our working cord underneath the holding cord every time we've made a full knot to make the next knot here, and keep extending the row. Tighten that, and this is also where you want to hold the holding cord gradually further and further towards the middle, or even towards the other side, so we create that curve in the row of knots. That's going to then fit perfectly around when we add the next bead in to finish off this circle. Do your double half hitch. You can see we're gradually getting that curve. Bring it underneath to make the next double half hitch. Tighten that in place and just finish that off. So this side is done now. You can always at any point as well just add some more pins in, because you can see my work is moving around a little bit. And now we have some more work done, we can just add some pins to help prevent that, make it a little bit easier to work with. Now on the other side, again, grab the two outer cords, so the holding cord and then what's going to be the working cord comes underneath, and just extend the row on this side here. Bring that down, make the first half, and then make the other half. Bring it underneath to make your next knot, building the row gradually more and more, one knot at a time, and also gradually adding that curve in. Tighten the first half and then tighten the second half to make it a full knot. Bring it underneath to make the last knot here. Tighten that. And the other half for the full knot. And here we are, we now have both sides done. So this is the point where we need to bring in our bead, and again add it to the two middle cords here. that are in between the two rows that we just made. So just add it on one side first, go straight through from one side to the other of the bead, and then I'm just bringing it down to make sure I'm then adding the next card in the right direction, because obviously we do want the sparkle here, or the bead itself, to be facing towards the front, all in the same direction. You don't want to accidentally end up having the back facing forward. So just gonna go through the other hole just until you can just grab it on the other side. If you can use your fingers, you can do that. Otherwise, like I did previously, using pliers can be helpful as well. Pull that all the way through until we can then push it down to sit right in the middle there. And then the cords are coming out on the bottom of the bead. So I'm going to use these for the working cords now. And this is where we then need to finish off the circle and fully cage the bead in place. So we're going to grab the two holding cords here. The right one goes over towards the left, and the left one goes over towards the right. So we have a doubled up cord and the crossing. One side at a time, I'm going to use the cord coming out from the bead, just starting with the left side. Make the double half hitch, hold the holding cords taut so we extend the row there. Do the other half, pull that nice and tight, swap hands to do the other one. Make a double half hitch, hold it nice and taut while we're tightening the knot all the way down. And then we have the loose loops that need to be tightened by just on one side at a time, pulling the holding cords through. And to the other side until we can pull both sides at the same time and have the cords basically snap into place and complete our full circle. And then this is then our second one created. So like I said, you can see we're literally doing a circle at a time, and each one is going to be made in exactly the same way. So just do this for however long you need yours to be. So once we reach the other end and we have the full length that we need, now we need to finish off the ends here, because we need something to be able to attach our ribbon ends onto, because obviously if we do it over here, we have the bead in the way and we don't want to cover or ruin that in any way. So I'm just going to do a little section of just some rows of macrame. So I'm going to start on one side, doesn't matter what side you start on. I'm just going to take the outer cord, bring that over the others in towards the middle, and then I'm going to take the cords that are coming out underneath here, use them as the working cord, and the one over is the holding cord. Then just make a double half hitch with one cord at a time, and I'm going to tighten this where the holding cord is kind of coming towards the other side a little bit at an angle. So as you can see here, tightening the other half, it comes to the other side and the row is going to end up being at a bit of an angle. Do the next cord. We're kind of just following the angle that we have naturally from the circle. Now I've done two knots here, so I've reached the middle, and I'm then going to put that holding cord out of the way. I'm going to go to the other side, grab the outer cord on that side, bring that over all the others into the middle, and then I'm going to do the same with this side here. Obviously now in the other direction, but again in towards the middle with the one working cord at a time. Grab the next one, make your double half hitch, and then we have the same thing on both sides. And what I then want to do is connect the two sides together. So it doesn't matter what side you do that with, I'm just going to use the cords as they already are. So I'm going to take what's the holding cord from the first side that we did, so from the other side there, and just have that underneath the current holding cord. And now this cord that I just brought under is now a working cord. So I'm literally just going to make another knot with that, which is extending the row that we're currently working on, but also then connecting the two sides together. And you can see we basically have a 90-degree angle between the rows, but they come down at a nice angle away from that very last circle. And this is basically what we want to keep repeating for however long you want to for yours. So again, I'm going to start on the left side, bring the outer cord over the others into the middle, make a knot with one cord at a time. Just make sure that I'm tightening these knots right underneath the previous row, nice and tight below there, using 2 cords on this side first of all. And I'm just going to keep repeating the same thing. So I'm just going to straight away leave this holding cord out to this side here, then bring the outer cord on the right side over all the others into the middle. And now I have 3 cords to use on this side to make knots with. Well, that last one is actually the holding cord from the other side, and also the one that's going to connect the 2 rows together in the middle. So just using 1 working cord at a time, make your knots till we get to the middle here, and we then connect the 2 sides together. And you can see we have another row of knots right underneath the first one. And then you just want to do this for however long you want this to be. Of course, taking into account we're also going to repeat the same thing on the other end, so everything is nice and even. And then once you have the length you need, then again, to fit in the ribbon end, what I want to do is just finish off the end more straight here, because right now, as you can see, we basically have a corner. So I'm just going to start another row in the same way and do a knot with the first cord here. Just complete your double half hitch, and then I'm gonna stop, go straight to the other side, take the outer cord and just do the 1 knot, the second half, and then I'm gonna stop. So now we have much more of a straighter edge finished. So of course what you want to do is then flip this around and do the same thing on the other end. So now we just got to finish off the end here by getting rid of the excess cord. So I'm just going to go in and cut off the excess. I'm just leaving a short little tail left on each of them, because what I'm then going to do is grab a lighter and singe down the ends. So basically melt them in place, and that's going to seal them. Now be careful, because this is a naked flame and it does get hot. But if you're not using a synthetic cord like I am, because it has to be synthetic in order for you to melt it, then you can use glue to secure the ends in place and then cut it off. But like I said, here I'm gonna singe them down and then melt them in place carefully, and then just press against them with the lighter. That helps seal them in place, and just make sure we get that straight edge. So it's going to fit nicely inside of the ribbon end. So adding that, you can see it's going to fit just perfectly, and we don't have too much bulk in there because we made a nice straight edge. Now what I do want to do is just add some glue inside of that ribbon end as well for some extra security. So you just want to make sure to cover the inside walls here. You don't need to fill it up because it's going to get clamped down and it's just going to come spilling out. But just cover the inside walls. And then I also like to put, let me just get a little bit more, some on the end of the actual piece that's going to go inside the ribbon end, just so that when we put the 2 pieces together and it dries, they're going to adhere really nicely together and create a nice, secure, strong bond. So just get a little bit in between the nooks and crannies there. So something like that. And then just grab the ribbon end, place it on there, and then we need to clamp this down. And for that I'm going to grab my pliers, and I just like to hold onto it with a finger on either side there to keep it in place, and I gradually go in and then squeeze down gently more and more until it's almost all the way down. And then I just want to check that it's still sitting in the middle and it's not slid more towards one side or the other. So adjust it if you need to, and otherwise then go in and do your final squeeze and make that nice and tight. And I also like to go in from the sides just to close them up as much as possible. And you can then always wipe off any excess glue that's come out. And then of course we need to Repeat all that on the other end, leave it to dry, and then we're going to have these little loops on the ribbon ends where we can attach our findings. So that is how you make this sparkly macrame bracelet, and you can of course really play around with the materials and colours that you're using to achieve your own personal style. Now if you want to see more macrame tutorials, I have loads on my channel, so feel free to check that out, and I also have tutorials within many other mediums. And if you want to support what I do, then feel free to like, share and subscribe. And if you want to go the extra mile, you can become a member or a Patreon. Links to everything will be in the description box down below. But otherwise, I really hope you enjoyed this one. Thank you so much for watching it, and I'll see you in the next one.